Howdy everyone. I'm moving around a little bit on my build. I had been working some on my heated pitot blade and running the tubing and trying to figure out how to work all that. And I'm taking a break from that while I wait on some parts. And I'm coming back to working on the fuel vent line. One of the things that you'll need to do with the RV7 is you'll have to fabricate these vent fittings. These pass through the bottom of the forward skin on the bottom of the fuselage. They're pretty easy to make. Now, ideally, I would have made these using a lathe and a milling machine, but since I am stuck at home, I don't have access to those machines. So I've actually made this one using a belt sander and my drill press. So I'll explain that. So here's a fitting that's in work. The fitting, of course, comes with this end threaded just like this end here. So this is a duplicate of that. And what I had done was I had chucked this way in my drill press very lightly. I have a keyless chuck, which works very nice because you can kind of get a feel for how tight it's actually gripping, because you don't want to screw up these threads. So I just chucked this lightly in my drill press, just enough so it wouldn't spin. And I spun it, I think it was like 600 RPM. And I just took these threads off with a file. And you'll also note that I cleaned up the blue anodizing on the nut face as well. And then after I had the threads off, I went ahead with some sandpaper, and again, spinning it in the drill press. I went ahead and cleaned it nice and smooth with sandpaper. And I'm going to touch up this face with some sandpaper as well, ultimately, before the fitting is finished. So now all I do with this is I take it over to my belt sander and I sand the angle, as you see here. And I'll explain that here in a minute. Let me put the camera down, I'll get some stuff set up, and then I'll come back. Alright, so I said I used my belt sander to do the sanding, which is partially true. I've got a belt here and a combination disc here. I use the disc to do the sanding of these fittings. This disc has a coarser sandpaper on it, or more coarse, I guess, sandpaper than the belt. That's why I use this. So these fittings, they come with a nut that you can spin on and off. This is just a nut to hold the fitting in place once it's installed in the skin. So what I like to do is I put the nut on, and that just holds the fitting nice and stable. It's not at an angle, and it's not going to move around quite as much because you've got two nuts here that are basically the same size, and it holds it nice and flat. So at this point, I just come over to the disc and I take this down, and I've got a little angle gauge here that I use to make sure I get the angle correct. I forget what the angle is. I think it's 45 degrees is what they state on the plans. So I just use this to check it, and then I just keep working it down here on the belt, on the disc. Now the way that I had done this one, you can see that it takes off a little bit of the nut right here, which I kind of like, because not that it matters, but if you can imagine this being attached to the bottom of your fuselage with that little bit of the corner taken off of the nut, you get a little bit of potentially aerodynamic help. I don't know. But anyway, that's just the way that it came out. To get this sanded down this way, to have this protrusion nice and short, I had to take off some of that corner, which is fine. I still have plenty of flats on the nut to grab a tool, for the tool to grab. So that's it. And then after I got the angle cut that I was happy with, I went ahead and touched off the face of each flat. just a personal choice. The bottom of my airplane is going to be white, and I didn't want a blue fitting sticking out of the bottom, so I just went ahead and cleaned these off. So everything that sticks out below the skin will be silver. I do not plan on painting these. So that's it. That's pretty much how I do it. So this one is ready to go. I'm going to hit it on the disc to get my 45, as you see here. And then I'll touch off the face of each flat on this nut just to clean it up to match this one. And like I said, I'll hit this face of the nut again as well to clean it up a little bit. And that's what it will look like when it's all done. All right. So I will get cracking on that, and I will talk to you guys later. And here are the finished products. As I said, ideally I would have done this on the lathe and on a milling machine, but I didn't have access to those machines since I'm stuck at home. So I just went ahead and made these on the drill press and on my combination belt disc sander. So this is the complete assembly. This is the nut. This is the nut and ferrule here for your tubing. This is the jam nut. And then the assembly, the silver part, then is what you will find hanging below the airplane. If you can imagine it like that. So you'll note that I added a washer here. I added that washer just because, like I said, this jam nut, so this fitting goes through the skin of the airplane, and then this jam nut would tighten down against the skin. But of course, to tighten it against the skin, you have to rotate it, and I don't like nuts rotating on my aluminum, so I always add washers. So I just went ahead and made, this is a 16 thousandths thick piece of aluminum that I made a washer out of for both pieces, just so this jam nut can spin against the washer as opposed to spinning against the actual skin of the airplane. So there they are, times two. Eventually I'll put screen in here with a little bit of Pro Seal. Actually, I probably won't use Pro Seal. I'll probably just use some type of RTV. But anyway, these will get screens. I already have the screen. It's just a matter of putting it on. And then these are ready for installation. So these are going to sit. I'm going to go back to working on my heated pitot blade, and hopefully start some wiring, running some wiring through the wings and getting the wingtips wired up. All in due time. All right, thanks for stopping in. As always, feel free to email me, leave comments below, subscribe, whatever you need to do. All right, talk to you later.